Is fear holding you back from starting your own business? Are you a business owner that's struggling to get clients? Or are limiting beliefs stopping you from making progress in your life? These are questions that millions of people around the world struggle with. But guess what? You're not alone. But what if you had a step-by-step guide showing you how to build your dream business? How would you feel if you could break free and find that key to unlock those limiting beliefs that are holding you back? What if I gave you the secret to achieving the success that you've always wanted? Then look no further, this episode is for you. The following is a conversation with Adham Alkhaja, a serial entrepreneur and the founder of Seyola. With a background of setting satellites to space and a PhD in aerospace engineering, he has built multiple tech businesses and developed his proprietary Worldbuilding Model. Now with his consultancy Seyola, he has helped over 250 clients generate over $1 million in revenue in their businesses and is on a mission to help you get the lifestyle and freedom that you've always dreamed of. And if you enjoyed the episode, guys, if you could please do me the small favor of just hitting that subscribe button, it will help me build the show and build the channel and bring more amazing guests and inspiring conversations. But that's enough for me for now. Let's get to the episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hope It Helps. And I have a very special guest with me today, Mr. Adham Alkhaja. Adham, welcome to the show, man.
Pleasure to be here, man.
Thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it. So, guys, just to give you some context, me and Adham connected on LinkedIn not long ago. Maybe it's been like 2-3 weeks now. But immediately, just from the content you were putting out, I'm like, this is someone interesting. You were delivering a lot of value, so many points that me as an early stage entrepreneur that I'm facing when it comes to marketing, when it comes to branding, your offer, putting things together, how you package it. And then when I started doing, so I was hooked just from your content. And then when I started to do more research and I learned about your background, I'm like, damn, man, this guy's done some shit. So what I'd love to talk to you today about, Adham, is just kind of your story and your journey, how you got to Seyola and what you do now. I know you've been in a million different industries, and we're going to get into it in a little bit. But before we get into everything, Adham, why don't you give all of us a little bit of background about yourself, and we'll take it from there.
Sure, more than happy, and hopefully I live up to that introduction. But yeah, so I come from a business background, basically. And I've seen people around me do business, but I was never building a business myself, but I was in a business, working and doing the sales parts and the marketing and so on. Until at some point I decided, okay, everything I touched, I noticed this was a pattern. Everything I touched, immediately I thought about, like every hobby, was I thought about how can I turn this into a business? Like every time I touched electronics, I enjoyed it, yes, but I was like, how can I turn this into a business? So that's where I said, okay, maybe business is for me. I need to taste this. I need to do something about it. And my first business was an electronic supplier shop. And a funny story is I'm not going to mention who he was, but I saw him selling 10 times the price of the market, supplying to certain industries here in the UAE. So he said, I'm going to start my first business, and I'm going to sell 1/10 of that price because I ordered it from China at that point.
Okay.
And yeah, so I started selling to the exact suppliers he was selling to. I was a kid at this point. And at some point on Instagram, I remember the old Instagram as well, he sent me a direct message, hello, I see you doing something similar to what I'm doing. Like I remember his name as well and his tag and so on. I immediately closed my account, delete account and so on. I'm out of business. So that was my first taste of like how businesses competing and so on. And then I found a place in the UAE called Fab Lab. It's fabrication lab. They did a lot of robotics and electronic stuff. And I found them on Instagram. I decided just to visit. No agenda, no plan, nothing. I went to them. I saw they're teaching kids, different batches of school kids about electronics. I said, okay, why not like help out, tell them what I done and so on. And what happened then is that I did it for the next 30 days. And then the CEO called me in and she told me like, what you're doing is amazing and so on in very short terms. And we would like to hire you. And here, like I still did not graduate from nothing. And I said, I need to do my studies first and so on. And she handed me a paycheck. Like she said, how many days were you here? And how many hours did you stay per day? I was like saying 11 to 12 hours. And I stayed here for 30 days and so on. She said, here's your paycheck, which is around $3,000. And that's where I felt real entrepreneurship. Like it came from me putting in hard work into something I was passionate about and so on. And I immediately took that money because we have this belief, and I'm sure you do as well, we need to give it to our parents because it's going to grow our bank account even more and so on.
Sure.
So I took that home, gave it to my mom. She didn't take it, but I tried. So we assumed that she did. And so after that, got into my bachelor's, master's, did a bunch of things, drones, AI, and all these tech Iron Man kind of words. But I don't want to get into those details, but did a bunch of that. Then at some point during this time, I posted on Instagram, I want to contribute to the UAE space mission because that's the time His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid came up or posted about and announced the UAE Mars mission. And I said, I want to contribute in that in any way I can. Like it didn't matter. I just want to contribute in any way. So what happened is a series of events happened in life. I don't know how I got to that. I was in that industry. I was working on a satellite. It was in Abu Dhabi. I was working on a satellite called MySat-1. Then I was working on a satellite called MySat-2. Then a bunch of other satellites. And then I decided to start my own space company at this point. And then I started another space company with a professor I had. He was basically my advisor at that time. And we started a different space company. And then we took it down that line of space companies and so on. And that's where you saw how that small electronic pieces that I ordered from China transformed into satellites that were being sent into outer space. So that was the journey of the electronic side. And at some point, I realized that all I was building during this time were things that I was not aligned with. Like it felt like I'm going in a different direction that how I wanted to be and how I envisioned my life to be. And this is where I did the smartest move in my whole life, which is closing everything down and going back to zero. From being known and making that money, having that business, having that status and whatever it is, nothing. Like it was bad. I can tell you. Like
I can imagine.
I even started asking myself, like doubting myself, did I make the right move? Was it ego? Was it that I was dumb enough?
Sure.
Or what's happening over here? And that's where I started finding this space or Seyola where we are in at right now. And it was through trial and error, because many people say you need to find what you're passionate about, what your niche, your market, and so on. Yes, true, but you don't find it, like you don't look and you study and say, this is what I'm passionate about and so on. That's not something I believe in it, but it's more of try, fail, and then figure out like which one resonated the most and go there.
Sure.
So that's what happened and where we came with Seyola. So I'm going to stop there right now. Maybe you want to unpack a bunch of things before moving forward.
No, man. Thank you so much for that context and for that background. So many questions about everything you just said. So I want to go back to Fab Lab first. You said that was the first time you tasted entrepreneurship. Now, I know you mentioned when you were a child that your father used to take you around to a lot of the businesses,
yes,
that he was running.
True.
So I'm trying to combine those two time frames. So you were a kid, you were getting exposed to different businesses, different possibilities, different opportunities. And then when you did it with Fab Lab was the first time you actually got like, oh, I can get paid for being good at something and doing something like I'm passionate about. So were the seeds of entrepreneurship something that was ingrained with you just through that time with your father and kind of like transitioned into everything that's happened so far?
So I'm getting goosebumps as you asked me this, because you took me down a memory lane just right now. So I used to work in his businesses and not on the business in any way. Like I was the lowest person in his business. And I remember, and why I'm getting goosebumps right now, because I used to do like these routine tasks over and over that has no point. You just do it over and the same thing over and over again. And I did that for a good 2-3 years. I didn't have the mindset at that point of starting a business on my own, but it's more of I like doing these routine tasks.
And what age were you around this time when you were doing all this stuff?
7 to 12, 13, 14.
Wow, like from day one, mashallah,
yeah.
Wow.
The first story that's the earliest story I remember, and I haven't told this anywhere, is that he took me to the office. I was working on a bunch of papers. I got bored. He was sitting on these old chairs from old time, like, you know, those big chairs that make sound. I looked under it. I put my finger, and my finger got stuck. And like I got an injury at that time, but that was the first moment I remember being in an office with him. And then from there, he kept on taking me over and over again, but without getting my finger stuck next time. But I kept on going over and over again until like it grew into me. But the realization, as I mentioned, happened was when everything clicked, basically, when I tasted entrepreneurship here, and I realized that in myself, everything I touch, I want to turn into a business. Like really anything I think about, like if I'm passionate about, let's say, guitar, I think, how can I start the guitar shop? Like that instantly goes on in my mind. And if that goes on, I should tap into it in any way. Like,
sure,
it's there.
No, absolutely, man. And it's always interesting hearing how those small moments when you're a kid, how much they, impact you down the line. So I was at the Sharjah Entrepreneurship Festival yesterday doing live podcasts with speakers. And one of the speakers he was talking about his story and how his environment played a significant role in what he ended up doing. So when you reflect on the environment aspect, because you've been, mashallah, man, you've been in dog breeding, robotics, building components, space, marketing agency, and now Seyola. How do you think you would have had the career and businesses that you've had if you didn't have that environment to start? And I guess the question is, how significant is your early environment to what you do down the line from your perspective?
If I think about it now, I wouldn't have this answer if you asked me even 3 years back. But if I think about it now, because I myself has kids and I'm thinking about them as well, it comes down to limiting beliefs. That's what I see. During that time, right, I did not start a business, but it shattered many limiting beliefs of what's possible beyond like 9 to 5 or whatever, like what's possible in this world. Yeah. Even though I did nothing about it, but it shattered those beliefs. It prepared me. So I think that early environment, whatever it is, it should shatter certain beliefs that would eliminate anything that would stop you in the future than getting to wherever you want to get.
Yeah, no, and the limiting belief aspect is something, as you know, this is what is ingrained to us in those early years, like 0 to 10, I think they say, typically that's when these things start to get set. Yani, I reflect on my career and my life. As I got older, I didn't realize the limiting beliefs I had until I first went into therapy, and this was when I was maybe 30 years old. The belief that I'm not enough. That's a belief I carried my whole life, but I didn't even. So many experiences happened in my life, but I didn't know why. And then when I went to therapy, I'm like, oh, that's it. But you see, that started. I can even remember the moment that belief got like set in. It's crazy how much that impacts you down the line. Now, to say people have come from terrible environments and changed the world and, built amazing things and beautiful things. So I think there's a combination of the environment maybe gives you the foundation, but then as you go through life, the rest is kind of up to you. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely, 100%. It's no matter where it is and where it happens, you're going to find out whatever you're not getting right now in life, whatever it is, if you're not getting the fame you want, the money you want, whatever it is, most probably because of limiting beliefs. And the hardest part, where, like, if you think about it right now, and that was the hardest part for me, because every time I wanted to scale any business, I had to tap into myself, what's stopping me? Because if that person did it, I can do it, but what's stopping me? It's my mind. So what in my mind is stopping me? And when you go down that timeline back, where did this happen and so on, that's where everything gets really challenging. Like, it's a rush of emotions. It's a rush of remembering what's happened. Like right now, when you ask me this question, I remember things. Like I forgot that. It's in my brain, but I forgot that. Yeah. So it's the same thing. Like that's the most challenging part. You go back and look at the roots of it and then solve it from there.
Yeah. And like you said, when you're talking about that rush of emotions, I remember when like I found out about that belief, there was like excitement and like happiness, also with confusion, anger, sadness. Like it was this whole ball of emotions wrapped into that one aha moment. That's kind of the mission I'm trying to do with this podcast. So podcast gave me my aha moment in my life, which is why I'm literally sitting with you here today. But I think also kind of touching on what you said, to really get through it, you have to go back to the beginning. You have to go back to the beginning and work through it. And it does take time. You know, when I realized that that was one thing, like if you reflect on your experience from when you realized that to the work you did on yourself in like life over the coming few years, how long would you say it took you to be, I don't know if it ever goes away fully, but to get to a place that, you know what, I'm at least comfortable with it now?
It does not go away.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's this interesting book by Napoleon Hill called Outwitting the Devil. I don't know if you read it or not. But basically he talks, it's an interview between him and the devil. So the main point of the book, if you don't want to read it, I'm going to just give it to
Yeah,
you,
please.
is that these feelings will never go away. It's a conversation you're going to have daily with the feelings that you have. And instead, and I draw it always like this, instead of going with high peaks, ups and downs, try to control it and within a straight line. And that's what you get better at. Instead of, you're never going to have it a straight line. You're going to just control it within that straight line.
Yeah.
And that's like my experience with it. I have days that I'm here, there, but regardless, like we need to push through whatever happens.
No, 100. I think you made such a good point on you're never going to get a straight line. That's so true. But it's control. The interesting thing that you said is controlling how high the highs and how low the lows. You want a nice, you don't want to run away with the fairies when it's high, but you also don't want to like beat yourself up and kill yourself, you know, when it's low. Coming on to space, because when I found out about the space aspect, I'm like, honestly, I was blown away. Like, because I've never had the privilege of sitting with someone who has that kind of experience. So if you don't mind, I'd love to understand. So you had a background in robotics. You were building those things at the time before you, you know, entered into space. What was interesting was when you went into your master's and you wanted to pursue like the space aspect, and they were saying, no, there's no future in space there. Like, why? Like, stick to robotic, like, electronics, that's where it is. You had your reaction to say, no, I'm either doing space or I'm not doing anything, was very interesting to me. So I'd love to understand, like, walk me through that space journey. Why space? Why did you say no? And you're like, no, I have to do this. There's no other thing.
I would love to tell you I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid, but that was not my dream. It was a pilot.
Sure.
So close. So during what happened is, if we go back, I was doing my mechanical engineering. I was doing my bachelor's in mechanical engineering. And then I went for a master's. I was looking specifically for robotics because I was doing something related to drones and so on, AI with drones and so on. So I found this university to do my master's in, and they had a robotics professor in there that was really smart. He was from MIT and whatever. And I said, okay, amazing. I want to go there. I want to work with that person. I entered the university. They gave us a bunch of theses, like you want to go this route, do this research and so on. None of them were robotics. They were like different things, and I was not interested at all. So I had to choose. Deadline was coming. I chose 3D printing in space, something related to that. And it was in the mechanical engineering department. So I'm trying not to mention names here, but
Sure.
yeah, so from there, what happened is I saw this UAE mission going on, and I saw what the university I was working at, or I was studying at, they had also a mission to teach students to go to space, which is called MySat-1. So I said, I'm going to be involved in that because that's a robot, but it's not on Earth. It's on space.
Yeah.
So I want to be involved in that. So I went there with everything I have learned from Fab Lab, all those chips and robotics and so on. Like I pulled out all those manuals and so on. I created the manual for the space things, like how to control this satellite in space using these electronic pieces and so on. I made a simulation, like I put a PC here, the computer here, and I put a piece like a 3D printed thing. I kept on moving it, it kept on moving there, and said, this is how we're going to control it. And it was really basic stuff. And that's where I caught the attention of the people in the space that were running that space thing. Plus, I was getting into the robotics thing, like space and robots and so on. So when I went back to tell that person, he was the head of the department, I told him, I'm not going to do 3D printing anymore. And he said, no, there's no future in space. Stay on Earth. 3D printing is everything. And he had this bias because he was working on 3D printing, like it was his life.
Okay, fair.
It was his life.
Fair.
So I said, no, like I am an introvert. Every personality test tells me I'm an introvert, and I could not, I would never have had the courage to say that, but I just wanted robotics. Like, regardless what happens, I want that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm out. And that was like what I was standing for. The tone he had, everything he had was against me in a way that I got scared internally because like, what's happening here? But I don't know how it happened, but thank God it happened. And I stood up for everything. And I got into what you're mentioning now, which is space.
Okay, so it sounds like what's interesting, and you've kind of touched on this in the other podcasts I watched. There was an element of your experience, your know-how in robotics, and luck that the UAE at that time that's when all like the big push towards space was coming. So that a very unique opportunity presented itself. But I want to just take a step back. Where does your passion for robotics come from? It's a very unique thing. You know what I'm saying? It's not that I've met many people in my life. No one has said, yeah, I love robotics. And you were doing it from a very early age with the drones and the VR and everything, and then Fab Lab, and then getting into space and just a very deep robotics path. But what is it about it, I guess, that you love, and how did it start?
Yeah, so just to make this useful for the audience as well, everything happened, in my case, was a matter of skill stacking.
Okay.
Like, if you want to become a doctor, you start with biology, then you go to the next level, and so on, so on, so on. So what happened in my case, and I love this quote by Steve Jobs, maybe I butcher it right now, but you can't connect the dots looking forward, you connect it looking backwards. And that quote didn't make any sense to me until I looked backwards and saw why I did everything I did. So the robotics part was the foundation to what comes into space. And it was a skill stacking session for me where I stacked the skills of robotics and so on. But where did the passion of robotics come from? A couple of places. One, I resonated with robots, with machines. Let's call it machines in general, like pieces, electronic pieces. I resonated with that. I don't know why. That's just something internal.
Yeah, fair.
And two, I was watching, this is something also I just remembered. I was watching, I think it was National Geographic. I don't know. It was one of the things, but there's this show called Mythbusters.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I was sitting with my cousin at that time, and I saw them do some weird things. I asked him, he's like much older than me. I said, what profession is that? Like, what's that? He said, it's mechanical engineering, but that's a robot. Like, there's machines and so on. Yes, that's mechanical engineering. He built a robot out of that. That's why.
No way. Wow.
That's something I just remember. So it's all about these small moments that define you, but the clarity of looking back and finding them is the tough part, which is what you're bringing out of me right now.
So I love that story, how sometimes the most insignificant moments, especially when you're young, you know, because you're very impressionable and so on, lead you down a different path. You could have watched something about food, maybe it hit you differently, and you would have gone down and ended up being a chef. Coming back onto space for a little bit. So I know you got your PhD in aerospace engineering. So deep academia and like getting masters and going down that path is an area that personally I've never had the desire for. I'm a very curious person. I love to learn, but I love to learn like Khaled style, okay? Like my interest, my time, my way. So I spoke to someone on a podcast recently, and he has a PhD in entrepreneurship and innovation and ecosystems. And I was asking him, I'm like, why did you go down that route? You know, because that's a very deep, like it takes a lot of work. And in my experience, I've always been like, I'd rather have experience than academic knowledge. But what he taught me was, it wasn't the knowledge that really blew my mind. It was the process of presenting your work in an academic format and the research and how to defend it and so on. So how was that experience for you, and how, I guess, has it carried forward with everything else that you've done?
So to go back a bit here, the reason I did my PhD is because my father used to tell me from a young age, you are a doctor, you are a professor, you're like Dr. Adham, Professor Adham, and so on. That's why I pursued my PhD for 4 years and so on. So that was the fundamental reason why it happened. It was ingrained in my head. And life took me that path like naturally, because I was robotics, then I wanted to continue this and build more on it in space and so on and so on. So that's where I went on academia and so on. But today, if you ask me, do you talk about it? Do you call yourself Dr. Adham? No, none of that. Like,
Yeah, I noticed that, by the way. Someone with a PhD usually would flex that. Yeah. I would have, personally.
But I don't do that, because academia and the real life entrepreneurship are kind of two different things. But many people have told me that the reason I am where I am right now in entrepreneurship is because I carry the mindset and the process that that person mentioned, of how I analyze things in my head, at like how I used to do research and all these coding and algorithms and so on. I take the exact mindset that I have over there and put it into business.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, one of the competitive advantage over here I have. So how it affects is the mindset that I developed during that time. And it was pressure in terms of finding the knowledge, putting it together, presenting it, defending it, talking about it, and so on. But taking all that and putting it into entrepreneurship, I think, is a kind of superpower.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
I wouldn't be proud of I wouldn't say this, once you get out of something, you say that thing is bad. That was me for a couple of years. But today I've found peace with it, with the process, and say, okay, there is positive things out of that. And now I am where I am because of that.
Exactly. And so what he was saying, what was interesting, and like where I see the resonance in your story, was when he was doing his PhD, the first time he did it, because he had maybe 10 years of experience as an entrepreneur, built successful businesses. So he went in with a very, not an arrogance, but like a confidence that like, oh yeah, I've built businesses. How hard could this be? But listening to his story when he failed the first time and what he learned is, what I took from it is, I'm like, you were forced to now think in a different way. You're forced to think now not through an entrepreneurship lens, through an academic lens. And now, in your experience, you've taken that and brought it into what you do. One of the things I really admire about you is, when I watched the podcast you were on, is the way you can break things down very sequentially, and you have a way of describing them that is very easy to understand. This is where I struggle, I have so many things, and I'm like, I need to say this part and this part, otherwise people won't understand. Consolidating things into simple, actionable steps is where I have the biggest struggle personally. Coming on to, so you were in space, and then you had a marketing agency, and then you had what was the other one you had? And then you were in investments, and then back to zero.
Yes.
And then you built a community, and then you went back to zero.
Yes.
So you talked on the podcast how you have built and burned down whatever that thing was many, many times. And you just touched on it earlier that those transitions, those restarting from zero transitions, were hard. So I'd love to understand from you, when you reflect back, looking at all, that body of work that you did before landing on Seyola now, how have you learned to deal with the identity crisis that comes with it? Because like you said, in each of those, you became known for that thing, which comes with a title and prestige and whatever, and then you jump into something else, like, okay, who's this guy?
Yeah, exactly.
So what's your advice when it comes to, those transitional phases and not having your identity locked to this business or this thing that I do?
So each of those business required a certain identity in me. But the problem and the reason why I was burning things down was I was building the business with no constraints for my new identity, and it was based on my old. So this may sound like too much like technical, but let me break this down. So when I was doing my PhD, or before that even, everything was work 24/7, make the money, but no time for freedom and so on. And this is just what your head will be focused at, and you're fully narrowed down on solving this small problem. And what I did with those businesses, I made the money and I reached, I was able to scale them, but I was doing the same thing, to work 24/7, make money, no freedom, and so on. But I wanted freedom on the other side, and I was building businesses based on that. And that's the reason I was burning it down every single time. So the identity shift is that and this is what I tell people as well, like be clear on the life you want and build a business that supports that life instead of just doing business because it's cool. Like, for example, let me start a whatever agency, like everyone is doing it here. Let me start a digital marketing agency. Okay, do you want to do this work for the next 5 years or not? And will it give you the freedom you want or not? That's a big question you should ask. What type of work you want to do and so on. So just be clear on the identity or the end goal that you want and try building a business with the constraints that will get you to that identity or to that lifestyle that you want. And the biggest problem people mess up over here is that they think not everything works. Like, I have a certain way of doing business.
Sure.
I don't, for example, message strangers. I don't go on sales calls. And like, there are certain constraints I have set for myself. But people think that the only way maybe is to send 1,000 cold messages to people, or the only way to work is to do sales calls. The thing is, after being in this field long enough and looking at all these YouTubers and Instagram gurus and so on, is that everything works. If you do it long enough, it works. Like, whatever you do, it works. It's just, what do you want to work for you, and what life do you want at the end?
Sure.
And I think that's like the biggest important point over here, the identity you want to achieve, the lifestyle you want, and building it based on that lifestyle you want.
That's such an important point because, like you said, I think entrepreneurship as a from a branding perspective has this allure that I think has been shattered by now, but it's still there, you know. There's goods and bad to it. There's, you know, people think it's it's my time and, you know, I can do this and I want to meet this guy for lunch and then I can do that and I can work till 5 a.m. or whatever. Like, there's a freedom that comes with it, that's for sure. However, because I was having this discussion with my wife yesterday, so she's a managing director at a big, you know, PR agency, and I'm, you know, building my business and doing my own thing. And we were kind of discussing, like, what price are you willing to pay? So for you, what makes you comfortable is security, paycheck every month, you know, that's what that is. And the price you pay comes with responsibilities and people and, you know, a job. And I was telling her the price so while I might have the free time, the price I have to pay is every day I wake up, I'm like, where the fuck is my next client coming from? You know, how am I going to build this? Am I doing the right thing? Is this right? So figuring, when you talked about thinking of the identity of the life you want and then building according to that, I think is you're kind of flipping things on its head. Because like you said, people typically will be like, oh no, I just want to start something. And then they get into it, and whether it goes well or doesn't, you're like it traps you in a way. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah. And because I've worked with a lot of people who want to start their businesses, and I've worked with people in 9-to-5s wanting to quit their 9-to-5 and start their own thing as well. And the biggest shift I've seen, or the most important thing that makes them successful is letting go. Like, it's as simple as that. Just let go. Don't hold tight to anything. Don't be stressed. Don't worry. Don't doubt. Just forget everything. Everything's going to work out. Just focus on being you and doing what you do. There's a book called, I'm going to give you a lot of books today.
Please, as you can see, bro, I love books.
There's a book called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Waltz. And that book, if I go back, is the book I read 3 times that I did not believe. And on the 4th time, I said, there's something in this.
Okay.
And that's one of the books that, like, absolutely changed the direction of everything I was doing in terms of identity and so on. It was seeing yourself and the identity you want to build the business that you want.
Yeah.
See, I'm touching on points here, and I think this is useful for the audience, is that I could talk about the best funnel right now. I could talk about the best content strategy or the algo, whatever, and so on. But that makes no difference if the human does not work. And I did not believe this. Just so you're clear here, this is something I did not believe really long time. I just wanted to work 24/7 and make it happen. But the unlock was not working 24/7 and fixing yourself.
Yeah.
So I think this is super important.
So I relate to what you're saying a lot. But I've had a kind of a different journey. So just to give you some context. So over the last, I'd say, I've been doing my podcast for 5 years. So this has been a long project. My business though has been, I'd say, 1.5 years full time. We're about to hit year 2. what I've learned is because I think I was very lost. I fell into doing the work I do, which is helping companies and brands launch podcasts. People started reaching out. They're like, Khaled, you've been doing it for so long. Can you come help us? So I'm like, sure. And then, one thing leads to another. And then, alhamdulillah, now I have recurring clients and, things are going well. But what I struggled with was I was watching, because I consume books and podcasts, and everyone talks about what you're saying, the grind, and every single successful entrepreneur is you have to work 28 hours and I don't know what. Mm-hmm. And when I was watching that stuff, because at the time I wasn't doing that, I was like, it made me feel like I'm doing something wrong. Like I'm not working to the level I need to be working. Now, to be fair, at the same time, I definitely wasn't working to the level I should have been anyway. Mm-hmm. And now the last 2 years was a lot of Khaled work. So fixing Khaled, mentally, emotionally, health, weight, therapy, let's get Khaled fixed. And now we have the foundation to build a business. Mm-hmm. But now I feel like I'm at the productivity level I need to be at. And it's hard because I resonate with your story that you thought that's how it has to be. That's kind of where my head is right now. But also I think from my side, it's doubled down because I wasn't there before. And now I'm where I'm supposed to be. So now it's like I have to double to make up for what I didn't do before.
Mm-hmm. So you have time as is chasing.
Exactly.
So yeah, only one point on this I would add is that that we need to let go and so on. But for me, if I want to work all day, I work all day. If I don't want to work all day, I don't work all day. It's just listening to the human within you. And because I'm going to tell you why. And this happened to me last year. Last year, I set goals in 2024, the very beginning of 2024. It was also in the news. I told them that I was sitting in front of this cafe and I was sitting in the car and thinking of these goals, talking to my wife and so on. So I set goals here, and end of 2024, by the end quarter, everything just started arranging itself and happening. It was like, for me, I was like, wow, how is this happening? Yeah. And I'm doing the same in 2025. But if you, 2025, I'm going to put this also on the podcast. I want to write a book.
Okay.
I want to publish this book.
Okay.
So this is my goal for 2025. Do I know how? I have no clue. Do I know how do you publish a book? I have no clue. I've read books, but I have no clue. Have I written something about it? Maybe an outline here and there. So the important part of it here for me and how I'm going to achieve this goal that I have is that I'm going to let go. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to worry anything or doubt anything. And I'm going to let a part of my brain activate, which is the subconscious, and tell me, the creative part, tell me how should I do this? Mm-mm. And the answer will come.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part. You need to trust and have the courage that the answer will come within this year. But when and how, you just need to chill and...
Yeah. No, for sure, man. For sure. I think listening to you talk about that, I think time is a very significant factor. Mm-hmm. I can honestly say, it took me 5 years of doing this to finally, and working now last couple months with coaches and whatever, to just challenge my perspectives. And now I'm like, the message is clear and it hits home and it makes sense. But it took so much time and my own ruminating and experiences and talking to people to get there. So it's kind of you have to just keep going, doing what you're doing, and through your experiences, you'll get that aha moment that you'll be this is what it is. This is what comes together. So when you said that if you can, for entrepreneurship, if you can handle 90%, 98% of uncertainty and 2% certainty and hold your breath long enough, then you have a good chance of succeeding. Mm-hmm. And you've also said you won't get paid for attending, you get paid for delivering results. Mm-hmm. So to have such a diverse career that you've had, when I look at your career, you built things and burnt them down many times. But would it be, I think what enabled you to do that from my perspective is you were able to deliver results in every single format, in every single business that you did, which I think gave you the confidence to, if I can deliver here and here and here, no matter what I want to do, I can deliver. Would that be fair to say? Or do you feel did that confidence come as a result of those, successes?
No, but just I'm gonna tell you how I approach every business.
Okay.
Like I don't like the typical way is what's my niche, what's my market, what's my offer, and let me go create some content, run an ad, maybe talk to a marketing agency, get a salesperson, sell it out, and see who wants it, and so on. My approach to every single business I start is what's value that I'm gonna deliver to the other person, and what I do is, and the same thing I did with Seyola at the very beginning, I sit with people within the market and ask them questions and try to sell them at different price points. Like intentionally, I know they're not going to buy, but I just sell them 20,000. This is painful. This is a payment plan. This is whatever it is. And just to see where the market is at. And then I go back and create something that the market wants. And that's exactly how I start every business and how I tell people to start businesses as well. Start with your value delivery system. How are you going to deliver the value to the market? And then start marketing it and so on and so on. So I think this, in every industry that I entered, I thought about how am I going to deliver this value to this person to get this outcome. And the outcomes are very simple. I'm just going to mention them here. They're either to make money or save money. Like people buy because of these. If you say, I'm going to help you wake up tomorrow with a better mindset and be happy, nobody cares. It's more of how am I going to make money or save money? Like get a better mindset to make more money or save money. How am I going to have better relationships? How am I going to look better physically? And how am I going to get out of a certain pain that I have? That's the only 4 reasons people buy. So I tie everything back to one of those 4 reasons. And I start creating a value delivery system based on what they have told me in the language they have told me as well. Like they say certain words as well on calls. And I use those exact words. Like sometimes my client use words and my best performing posts are words that my clients have used. And I put it inside a post and I write it down and I send this post as well to the client. I said, thank you for the post. It's one of my best posts as well. Yeah, so just listen to the market. That's the only key over here.
And that's to even like listening. So what we've talked about so far is, and what I've learned in my journey or with everything I've done is, this is the part that I think that I neglected, and I think a lot of other people neglected as well. You start before doing this step. You go down a path, and then when you get stuck, you're like, okay, now I should probably start doing some research about like who, where, how, what price point. And I think listening to the conversations I've had, speaking to people like you, I've learned that if you do that first, it will save you so much time and headache down the line, because you'll have clarity from the beginning. And you'll be attacking a problem that now you've figured out that there genuinely is a problem that this problem that people want solved, not like, oh, I just want to build a business because this is what I like to do, and then we'll see. So you've said in the past, because you came from an engineering background, so you used to think product, as long as I build the best product, people will come. But as you learned in your experience, and I've learned with mine, that's not the case. So when you're coming on to Seyola, you said one of the biggest challenges in most businesses that you say is there's a misalignment between your market, your offer, and your positioning.
True.
Now, you've also said that 80%, and you touched on it earlier, 80% of the time the problem in any business is the entrepreneur.
True.
So I'd love to hear from you, staying on Seyola for a second. I know you did a year worth of research and like talking to people and getting feedback and so on. Where was, I guess, when you started out, where was the misalignment that you found in how you started maybe in the earlier days, and what did you do to adjust that?
So if we talk about my market evolution for the past 2 years, like if I want to go down to like, what's my niche? I ask myself, what's my niche? First was I have business owners, too broad, but I just started there. I have business owners in the UAE, but it's still too broad. I help business owners. It was like this. I broke it down. I help physical product business owners and service-based businesses. Still the whole business, but I broke it down. Then I looked into 2 of them. I said, which one do I align with most? Then I said, okay, service-based businesses. Then I went to talk to service-based businesses, and I enjoyed them. So I said, which part of them do I enjoy? It was more of the coaches, consultants, anything that related to the individual being like the core of the business. So I said, okay, let me talk to these people. Then it slowly went down to where it is today, where I help ambitious people, basically, build the businesses around themselves through world building. So this is something I came up with also this year.
Yeah.
I used to do it, but I had no clue I was doing it. I just coined this name to it. So this was the evolution of the market. I kept on saying something, getting no money for it because it was too broad. The market was validating that, okay, there's a problem here. It's too broad. I don't exactly understand what you do, and so on. And then kept on niching down until to a point where I enjoyed the market and they also got the value that they want. So going back to the point of the results, can we quantify results? Like, this to me, you can't quantify, did you deliver results or not, unless you have a contract and say, I'm going to do 5 posts and so on. So can we quantify results in any way? Like, I got the best results in the industry, or someone says, I'm the leading provider of whatever. Can you quantify that in any way? If yes, then great. If no, I think it's very hard to quantify this.
Yeah.
But what it does, and this is a segue to yourself, that you asked me the first part of the question, it puts a challenge for yourself. If I say I want to get the best results in the whole industry worldwide in this specific sector, I'm challenging myself. It's not like competitors, yes, they're saying, where does this fire come from? Yes. And some people say this person is too naive, but ears will perk, one, and you challenge yourself. And when you tell yourself this long enough, you're going to think of ways of how can I get the best results in the industry. And that's where self-improvement comes. So 80% is the entrepreneur, yes. And I think entrepreneurship, the best part of it and what I love about it, it's like a book on steroids. Like it teaches you lessons that you will never think about anywhere. Like it challenges you. Like it challenged me to some point. Like it was asking me, do you know even how to speak? Because nobody gets your message. Do you know how to speak and explain the ideas in your head, or it's just in your head? And that's where I got better at speaking, explaining stuff, and so on. So different parts improves you as a whole, and it's a vehicle for self-improvement. I think I answered both questions with this, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. So when you started, it was, like you said, it's an entrepreneurship is also an evolution. Like even just listening to your story of that early days with Seyola is it service for entrepreneurs? No. Okay. Is it service for product entrepreneurs? A business owner? Sorry. No. And it's just like niching and questioning and trying this positioning. And you're like, does that resonate with me? Do I feel like this is where I can add the most value? And I think you need to have a patience to keep trying, different things. Like, okay, it's not that. And also, I think you need to be quite agile in entrepreneurship. You know, so many businesses of the most successful ones started out as one thing and ended up being something completely different. But that is what, that's what hit home. Now, the personal development aspect is something I resonate with a lot. I always tell people I feel like entrepreneurship is the ultimate personal development playground because, like you said, you will be forced to learn about so many different things and it will reveal every single weakness you have. And that from a mental perspective, at least, and through my journey and like going through it, that was hard because you realize like, I have strength, but there's a lot of things I'm weak at. It's quite humbling. It was a very humbling experience for me.
True. 100%. I agree with you. It's a personal development journey.
Yeah. And so I wanted to touch on this actually, because we're going to get into more of the world building stuff in a second, but so you've had product-based businesses, and now with Seyola, it's a consulting, it's a service-based business. Exactly. So my father and I always have these heavy debates. Okay. He's always like, because what I do is a service, right? Kind of like what you do. His perspective is, and what I see, from like, I love watching Shark Tank, just because it just inspires me, and like you learn like, okay, these are things I need to have in order if I ever speak to an investor or whatever, but the most successful ones seem to be product-based. And my father leans on product is a much, I guess, what's the word? You have a higher chance of success or scale with a product than you do with the service. I guess that's kind of where his mindset is because he's always like, what you're doing is great, but like you need a product. Whatever it is, a course, it's like something that can generate recurring revenue for you. So having built both businesses, if I came to you, I'm like, Adham, I want to start my own business, but I don't know if I want to do a product or a service. Could you just walk us through what are the things I need to consider to maybe give me some clarity on maybe this is where I align more or maybe service is where I align more?
So yeah, I can touch on a couple of points here. I've helped more than 50 companies, which are physical products companies in the UAE, do all the fun stuff and marketing and so on. And that was in the past. I don't want to do that anymore, and I don't do that right now. And the big thing I noticed, and I would ask someone if they tell me should I do product or service-based businesses, is that each one has a different psychology.
Yeah.
Each person is different. Like at the psychological level, if I sit with this person and this person, completely different thinking lines and processes. So that's number one. And two, I've seen in the UAE, especially with the locals, most of them go towards product-based.
Okay.
And they treat it as a side business instead of the main business. It's like the side business to their jobs. And the new generation right now are doing service-based, which are agencies and so on. Like you see these new people, the kids and so on, they're doing service-based. So there's a shift happening there. That's something I'm noticing as well. So there is a shift happening. And if we think about it, why? Like I had this discussion with one person that recently came to me as well. He said, first I'm going to do this product thing. Then he switched to service. Then I asked him, why did you switch? He said, I don't want to be physically present in that place. I want to be anywhere I want, and so on. So what I can say that right now with service-based businesses, there are business models that can keep to you 90% plus margins, while with product-based businesses, 15% to 20% they're super happy with. And then I'd ask, how much physical interaction do you want to be within the business as well? Like service-based, you can come a bit hands-off. But fundamentally, if you think about both of them, in a service-based business, and why I love it, is that in a service-based business, you are the product.
Yeah.
Meaning that product development, in a sense, is you development.
True.
Which is personal development, which is go read more books, get mentored, and so on. Make your business make more money. And it's just like a feedback system or vehicle for you to see that are you developing or not as a person.
Yeah.
That's why I love this kind of business. But if I ask my father as well, which business would you prefer? He would say physical for sure, because that's what he does. And he wants to be physically present in that place and so on. It's the same with the digital money when it came out, like anything, the credit card and so on. Like they felt it's not real because it's not tangible in any way.
I can't touch it.
I can't touch it. So that's the difference, I think, with both psychologies over here. So if the question is, which one should I choose? I'd say, do you want to develop as a person, or do you want it to be as a side thing, or do you want to be present and be that boss where you go in the office, look at the product line and so on, or you just want to be free in some country and doing whatever you want and making the money that you want? And how much margins do you want? How big of a team you want? These are all small questions that you can go down. And with enough answers, it's going to be clear what you want. Even though you're not convinced, if you have this belief of, I need to have a product to have a successful business. But if your personality says, or your psychology says, or the lifestyle you want is there, it's better for you to build a service-based business.
Yeah.
Like you'll be happier. But it's up to you.
No, of course. Yeah, there's no right or wrong here. But because you built both, I wanted to see how you analyze your experiences. So when it comes to, you touched on something very important, your psychology as a person. Where do you lean more towards? So as I mentioned, the podcast I did recently about entrepreneurship, my guest was saying, so he's the founding partner of Astrolabs. So we were talking, and he had like a venture-backed business, with Lemshi, and then he did Astrolabs, which is more, service-based. So I was asking him, when it comes to entrepreneurship, he's like, there's product market fit, but then there's also founder fit. He's like, before you start any business, you have to think exactly like what you're talking about. Does this align with my personalities? Does this align with the lifestyle I want? The identity, as you touched on earlier, that I want to have in 5 years. Do I want to be in the office every day? Do I want to have more freedom? There's different margins, different challenges. When you said that as a service-based business and what you're doing now, you are the product. It's kind of similar to what I'm doing. Like I am the product of my business. Mm-hmm. Now, what I have learned listening to podcasts and reading is, although I have the freedom and I have, to move the way I want and I have clients, I have partners that I bring in for certain specific things. but it's just me at the end of the day. I do everything. So that also brings a certain set of, limitations, because there's only so many hours in the day. There's only so many clients you kind of can have. So someone told me once, is like you've designed like your own job in a way, but it hasn't translated yet into a business. And this is where the people aspect kind of comes into play. So you guys were saying on the podcast, like, everyone says this in entrepreneurship, it's a lonely journey and it's lonely at the top. But you also said very correctly, but without people, you can't get to that top. So I want to just understand from you, reflecting on, let's just focus on the services aspect. When did you make that switch to be like, I need to bring some more people onto this? And how did it make you feel less lonely? Did it accelerate things? Because I think this is an area that solopreneurs are looking to, what's that next phase of their business, are struggling with, and including myself.
Okay, so very, very nice question you asked over here. I've managed a team before with the space stuff, which were more than 30 people. And right now with Seyola, there are periods where I'm with just some personal assistant, or I have a couple of content people on my side.
Sure.
And these are the two scenarios I'm giving you as an intro. And then in Seyola, I have 2 seasons for myself. Either I'm in maintenance season or I'm scaling season.
Okay.
If I'm in scaling season, I hire a couple of people for that period. And then if I'm maintaining because I don't believe you should scale all 24/7. That's something everyone talks about it, but I don't think you should be scaling 24/7 and growing your business 24/7. There are periods that you're going to maintain and just fix the leaky buckets that you have within your business. And so I differentiated between seasons, and within the scaling season, that's where I hire people the most. Like recently, I've hired 2 content editors. Like, I don't know if you see my videos, but
dude, they're beautiful. Yeah, they're so well done, really.
What I enjoy about that process is I just record the video and send the video, and it comes back in like a couple of hours ready.
Yeah.
That's nice to me.
Yeah, for sure.
So and it took a while to get to that point, like giving them guidelines and so on. So depending on the season I am in, I hire a certain amount of people. And soloprenneurship, yes, people talk about it, especially on LinkedIn. Many people are solopreneurs and so on. But you do need help with the unleveraged work that you are doing, whether I wouldn't sit 15 hours a day editing content. Impossible. I have clients and work and so on. Or I'd rather do nothing than do content editing. Do that. So the step here is, and I have certain metrics for this, but ideally it's from your revenue that you're making every single month, even if you're an entrepreneur or whoever you are, a solopreneur or whoever you are, 15% of that must go into marketing, whatever, consider it as a tax. Just send it to whatever. If it's a content editor, you pay that salary, that's done, you make more money, put it into ads. Do something with that 15%, even burn it, just do something with it. And other percentages go to different places just to maintain that you are fine. So that's overall how I look at everything if you want to scale. And if you're not scaling, if you're maintaining, it could be you. Sometimes me, for a week's work, I work sometimes 8 hours, sometimes 15 hours, full week.
Mm-hmm.
And with 90% margins, and we're making good money for the hours we put in. Yeah. So it works, it's possible, but depending on the constraints that you want to put for your own business.
Sure. So it's so funny that it's really interesting. I've never heard anyone talk about it in a concept from the framework of seasons. It's not a full-time thing, but for this period, I need this to get me to that next level. And then I will cruise, I'll maintain for a while, make sure everything's running nicely. And then when it's time to scale again, we'll go up. That feels like a lot, kind of like the season I'm in right now. So I'm in, listening from that framework, now I'm in scaling season. Mm-hmm. So for the last 5 years with the podcast, whatever, so I do everything. I'm the editor, I'm the content producer, I'm the researcher, I'm the host. I do mm-hmm. everything. Mm-hmm. Now, for the podcast, it's fine. But for the business now, I was like, it felt like, you know what, I don't know how to put it into words, and you kind of touched on it earlier, like reflecting on your story. The end of last year, you had targets, and then in December, things just, you know, puzzle pieces just kind of start falling into place, and that's how it's started to feel for me over the last 2 months with the show, with, you know, work, with connections I'm making. So I was like, all right, now it's time to, you know, give it. It's time to, you know, invest. So I had a graphic designer that did a whole rebrand for me. I have people working on my website. I have, YouTube coaches, personal coaches. Like, I'm in. You know, I need help now just to get me to that next level. You said something, and I started laughing. That one of the big issues, and you touched on it in your world building problem, is people focus on the wrong things. So you were saying, and I started laughing, you know, people will think like, you know what, this is what I need to do to amplify my business is like fix my website, whatever. And in my head, when I was reading that, I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I'm doing right now. But maybe my situation is a little bit different because I didn't have a website, so I kind of need one. So maybe it doesn't fall under that. But what I really took from that is, even if you sat with me, like, you're like, okay, Khalid, here, this is the thing you need to do these are the right problems you need to work on for your business. I'm going to give you the framework step by step on how to do it. Still, even with the what and the how, a lot of people will still not execute on that. And that is something that in my head, I'm like, I still don't understand. So I'd love to hear your perspective on why, when I've given you the roadmap, here you go. 1, 2, 3, you'll hit whatever. Why do we still not do it?
Yeah, it comes back to the human experience, one of it. For the website thing, the way I found this out was when I was doing those calls.
Sure.
Like I told you, I do research calls before building my product. I could go to market and say, I'm going to build you a website.
Sure.
But when I went on the calls, I found out that many of the people were saying, I'm working on my website now. I'm busy. I can't join. Like I put a price point and they say, I'm busy now. I can't join because I'm working on my website and I'm working on this and I'm running ads and whatever it is. So everyone, I saw a pattern from everyone working on their website when even nobody visits their website. And me knowing that I've worked with websites in the past, it's a 3-month life cycle or lifetime. They come back to me and say, I need SEO because nobody's visiting.
That's next. Yeah, of course.
So people work on the wrong things. That's 100%. Because they want to avoid the things that actually move the business, which are uncomfortable most of the time. That's point number 1. And point number 2 is giving everything away and still people will not take action. I had once, comes from experience, for 2 years, I had this paid thing and the free thing.
Okay.
So because of how the market moves and so on, I said, let me take a big bunch of the paid thing and make it free so it acts as a lead magnet and people see the value that I have and so on. Yeah. And people will want to join into the paid thing and so on. And I fixed the back-end offer. It's a bunch of things. I took all that and put it out. And the reasoning I did that was because people were with me for 2 years. They were watching, they were doing everything and so on. They still did not get the results. And even with the free thing, they still did not get results. So fundamentally, I said, what's the problem over here? Why aren't people getting the results and so on? So I just kept it free and I said, it's fine. Maybe the free people could benefit or see the value and come in. But I realized when I sat with them one-on-one each, they told me that like they opened things that I never knew they had in their mind, which are, I was doing this with my family. I was on the washing machine and then I clicked this button, this happened, and then I lost this, whatever it is. So it was more of distractions, limiting beliefs that I'm not worth doing this, I'm not worth this money. And you see, I'm not getting into details because it's their details. Sure. But I'm not worth this, I can't do this. The biggest thing I have, you're comfortable with it, yes. I don't know when you became comfortable with it. But right now, I tell people, for example, make videos. Yeah. It takes them like 3 to 4 months. Of me every day telling them, make a video. And then I force them and go on a Zoom meeting. I click record and I do a podcast, which is not, I say, cut me out, just talk. Yeah. And I make them post that video. That's where the unlock comes. Yeah. So these kind of small things cause a big delay, but can be solved really quickly. So that's why I say if you take everything you have right now, which is paid. Put it on YouTube or wherever. People say they won't value it. Yes, they won't value it. And it will attract a lot of freebie seekers. Yes, it will. But the right person with the right messaging, they're going to see it and say, this guy knows his stuff. And the biggest and the best example I can give you here is there are different people in the market. I think this is going to be really useful for the audience as well. There are different people in every market. I call them, one is the Udemy minds, those who believe that 90% off on Udemy is real, and they buy the $7 courses. There are the intermediates where they like your funnel or something you're doing, or this mic, the way you've put it. So they ask you, how did you put this mic? So teach me, and so on. And there are the whales of the market.
Sure.
And I'm coining this term. It's very new. I call them hamors.
Okay.
So I'm until I get there, it's going to take time. But there are the whales in the market. The whales, how do they buy real estate? They go, they look at the layout, they look at the plan, they look at the rooms, they look at whatever and so on. They see everything and they buy. The Udemy minds, you hide everything from them. You say there's something behind the door. Do you want that or not? So the way and who you attract, if you're selling a $9 course or whatever it is, that's more of Udemy mind. Don't give them everything. Just say, there is how to do that mic exactly with the angles. There's a PDF there. Do you want it? Come in. But if you want to attract whales, this is how I set the mic, this is how I did this is how I did this, and so on. Do you want me to do it for you? Do you want me to help you with it?
Yeah.
So it's like different psychologies and market sophistications you can hit.
Dude, that's such a great example, man. Even like listening to you, I was like reflecting on like myself, and I'm like, yeah, okay, where am I? Am I going for the Udemys? Am I going for the intermediate? Am I going for the whales? No, I think I'm going for whales, but one thing you touched on, which is like you talked about the human element, and even when you have everything laid out, you can still be your biggest roadblock. So on the content creation side, so this to me, what we're doing right now, this is can do it in my sleep, easy. But like to sit and create like solo content is where, not gonna lie, still have struggles, still have insecurities. My wife has been on my ass about, Khalid, you have to do this. Khalid, you have to do this. This has been, what are we now? Maybe 2 years. So I've gone through phases that, it worked out. I've gone through phases that I haven't. I just, I like to be honest in my podcast about if I'm not doing that, I'm going to be honest with you. But again, everything comes with time. Everything comes with learning. These kind of like why I love doing this is I keep learning. After our conversation today, I'll walk away from it and be like, okay, yeah, man, Adham is probably right about this couple of things. I think it's khalas. You got to get up your ass and like start doing these things. You also, not only was it interesting seeing how you broke down who am I targeting. The other interesting thing that I found, so I watched the whole Worldbuilding Model video because I wanted to understand, I'm like, how has he encompassed everything together? One thing that I found very interesting on a personal level was when you're analyzing the market, there's 50% that are the freebies that you talked about. There's a 3% that will buy right now. And there's a 47% that you need to put in that will take 2 to 2 years to convert. Now, and it was interesting that you said everyone is fighting for that 3%. Because we want that result now. We want to get it now. We want those quick wins. Now, I think this is where a lot of people struggle as entrepreneurs and business owners, especially in the early days, is because especially at the beginning, you need like those wins, not just on a personal level to validate what you're doing, cash flow. But if the lead time is 2 months to 2 years of the other 40%, that massive chunk converting, what am I supposed to be doing in the because you said once they're ready, you need to be positioned so that, they come to you. So let's say I've started now and my lead time is 2 months to 2 years, but I need cash flow quick. What should I be doing in this phase of like kind of patience and waiting to be ready for when those guys are ready to convert?
So yeah, that's a very important point, because let's say you're getting fired from a job and they give you a notice, or you're like, I need to make money, I have family, I have rent and so on. Very important point. So point one, and very importantly, I come back to the human. See, if we did this podcast 1 year ago, I'd talk about funnel strategies, but now I'm very calm.
Good, it's perfect timing. Fantastic.
So don't go into scarcity mode. Don't go into need mode, desperation. Everything's going to break down. Everything's going to burn down. Don't go into that mode at all if you're starting out and you want to go down this route, because that energy is sensed in your marketing, in your content, in your sales, in your follow-ups. Like even your follow-ups feel like force. Hey, I need to block this person. What is exactly how some of them, I'm not gonna generalize here, but some of them, the real estate brokers which call you, hello, you have this property, whatever, or we have this, or this sale is happening, or there's Bitcoin is up today, like those forex brokers, Bitcoin is up today, do you want to buy some? Like they're targeting the 3%, and that's desperation. Like they keep on calling. If you show any approval of the message, you're gonna get calls for the rest of the day, of the year.
That's very true.
So that's desperation energy. That's push energy. So one, stay at the pull energy. That's one. And two, don't talk, or as I call it, don't dance and show that you're skilled, but understand people at a personal level, and mainly the people within your network. Like if you are starting today, you have 1,000 to 3,000 people around you. Most people don't have a lead problem. Like I'm confident in saying this. Most people don't need more leads. They need to work the people around them better only, and message better, and understand them better. So I have this thing which I say, understand and feel people, and let them feel that they're heard and seen. I don't know if you've seen it in my post on LinkedIn, but I talk like, you are this, you and you and you and you. That's me flipping the script on them instead of me. Like, don't go posting and showing everyone that I am doing this, do you want it? I am doing this, I have this degree, I got certified, do you want to buy from me because I need money right now? More of, I hear you, I understand you. There is this problem that you have, and this is what's going to happen, and so on, so on, so on. So more of them instead of you. That's point number 2. And once you're in that energy, you just let people know of what you're doing by understanding them around you. If you have 2 months, let's say, within 10 days of you posting content in this way, like I've tested this out for years. Within 10 days, if you do this exactly, like you talk to their emotions, understand them, see them, feel them, they're gonna reach out to you and they're gonna talk to you. Like yesterday's post, I had a bit of that in it, and I had no CTA on it. Like there's no
there wasn't. That's true. Yeah.
People went to visit my website. They went and entered their email, and I got like 14 emails just by that post, and I did not do any CTA. It's why they felt heard and seen. Yeah. So what I'd say is, if you tap into the desperate energy, that won't happen. If you tell them I'm selling this, that won't happen. Yeah. All my first clients, when I started all the businesses, was me making sure they're seen and heard, and I feel for them. Yeah. Like, not the problem they have right now. For example, if you're a business, you are struggling to get sales, let's say. That's your problem. I won't say your business, you're struggling to get sales. I'm more concerned about you as an individual, and how do you feel because you need to fire that favorite employee that you have that has a family because you haven't made paycheck, to cut costs so you can run your business. That's exactly what I'm going to target during this 2 months, and that's what's going to convert the most. Yeah.
It's very refreshing to hear someone, because although our conversation we're talking about a strategy, but the human element, and this is, Adham, honestly, in so many of the recent conversations I've had with very successful entrepreneurs, like yourself and so on, I'm realizing it more as I go throughout this journey, the significance of the human element, because it's just behind no matter what the strategy is, no matter what, like if the person if they have, like you said, a limiting belief, a block. I'll use my case as an example. So all the clients I've gotten so far came either through referrals or through, some ads here, whatever. Now, and I do have a background in sales. However, if I have to be honest, I'm kind of at a point where, I think this is maybe a limiting belief I have, reflecting even on my podcast. My biggest mistake throughout my whole podcast, Adham, was marketing and distribution. I thought, if I'm just consistent, I produce episode every week, whatever, my network will build, and through, guest network, for sure, this is the way. Yeah, learned the hard way, that's not the case. And you kind of touched on it in your podcast. If no one knows you're there, how are you going to benefit from anything? So the last year has been, or especially the last couple of months, has been a big push towards, you know, putting myself out there more and marketing and so on. But I will honestly say I do think I still have a sales block because I don't like, and you kind of touched on it, like I did 3 years of cold calling. So I've played that game. I've done the cold outreach and whatever. And I think I want you to come to me because you believe in, you know, what I do. But I think you also need to have a balance of you going. Now, what I learned from you watching the video of the world building method was your value is you want to give trust me. You know, I'm going to give you so much value. So you trust what I do. And then if you're that part of that 47%, there's a good chance you'll come to me. But I think there's also I'm just reflecting on myself. At one phase in my life, I was maybe too heavy on the ask, and I wasn't giving enough. And now I'd probably say I've hit the other extreme now of I've give, and I don't ask enough. So what advice would you have to someone who's in like my situation or is going through, you know, balancing that act? Because you're also giving away some like people would pay so much just for that video. There's so much value in it, but you give it away for free. But that also, from my perspective as an entrepreneur, I'm like, that's someone who's fucking confident in what they can do.
Mm-hmm. Understood. I appreciate the kind words. And in your case, yes, you've been selling. Now you're giving too much. I think it's more of a balance between both.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
100%. And I'm gonna come and explain to you exactly how. So the point of this podcast, let's say, or the content you produce and everything, is for people to trust you as an individual.
Yeah.
People to trust that you have a certain method of doing things, and people to trust that you have an offer that fits them.
Sure.
So maybe they trust you because they've spent hours with you. But do they know about your method and trust your method? Or do they know about the offer that you have or not? True. That's the two things that may be stopping the sales or blocking the sale for you. Mm-mm. And the way you can do this is you give as much as possible, because you mentioned at the very beginning you want to target whales.
Yeah.
So you give as much as possible. You show what you have. You show who you are as a human being, like adding your personality in it. It is very important. People buy because of you, not because of what you have. And I don't know if also you saw the study by Google, the 7-11.
The 7-4-11 one,
yes, yeah. So you're doing that. It's all over here. The 7 hours completely gets done very quickly. They can binge watch you.
Yeah, right now.
So the 7 hours is done. So they trust you as an individual. But now we come to the method and your offer. I don't know what your offer is, but for your method, there has to be this unique method of you doing things that's better than what other people are doing. Mm-mm. And it's different than what other people are doing as well. For example, in my case, I looked at the marketplace, I looked at the funnels. Like everyone is selling a funnel right now.
Yep.
Everyone is talking about get as much as lead, running ads, DM strangers, cold calling, and so on. This is the only way, and this is you need to do it to get your sale and so on. I said, remove all that. We don't want that. Let's go build a world where people come to us without any funnels, without and so on. So in your case, what is your thesis with everything you're doing? If you're selling podcast things, what is your thesis around podcasting? Like, talk about the 7-11 rule, 7-11-4 rule, for example, and how this podcast fits into that. And there's a way to get people to trust you and so on. That's how you're going to increase the sales and people and so on, so on, so on. So that's going to build trust in you and your method. But then comes your offer. So if they trust you in your method, they're ready to buy. But then comes your offer, which is, I know what you want. I know your pain points. This is what I have. Yeah. You don't need any testimonials, case studies, nothing at this point. It's just, this is what I do. This is what I have. Yeah. Do you want it? Yeah. That's all. It's really simple if you get the parts right. But the most important part is the who. Who are we targeting? Yeah. What do they feel? What do they tell their partners before they go to bed that they're never going to tell their employees or colleagues? Yeah. That's exactly what you're going to talk to, and they're going to listen. Like today, this morning, last night, I was working with someone. And I wrote a LinkedIn post. Like that person was telling me, I read this part, you told me to do this. I don't know how to exactly get the psychology right of that person I'm talking to. I said, let's think about that executive director that goes to coffee with his friends, with other executives, and he has money aside and wants to invest money, but here's all the real estate scams over here and so on and so on, but has no clue what to do. And we wrote that post today, this morning. That person sent me a message, and executive director reached out to me.
Wow.
And that person told me,
That's awesome.
that person told me that was me. So I can send you the post later on. But but it's just talk to the individual at the heart level, and they're gonna come. That's the switch here.
No, 100%, man. And first of all, thank you. I really appreciate the feedback and advice. I guess when you look at it through that lens, it helps me identify. I'm like, okay, this is where some work needs to happen. These are the things that maybe I'm not doing correctly, and so on. And again, we keep coming back. The human, man. The human
psychology.
The human psychology, man. And this is, so I'm a licensed hypnotherapist. So I'm obsessed with like anything to do with this guy. Come and I'll sit with you. We can talk for hours. I love it. And that's what I loved sales because of that. Not the physical job of sales. I hated that part. But the psychology of how do I connect with this person? What are they feeling? And so on. But I think this is the most important part that even myself, I'm still like learning and improving on, is putting yourself in the other person's shoes. So I had a guy on my podcast recently who talked, he's a expert in public speaking. And he said something, Adham, that blew my mind. He's like, and you've touched on it in this conversation a couple of times, which is any communication is a dialogue, not a monologue. So he's like, even when it's a conversation, when you're communicating on your website or whatever, it's not, hi, I'm Khalid, I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which you said earlier. It's, hi, I'm Khalid, is this something that bothers you? Is this a pain? Like, it's a conversation. Looking at it through that lens has been such a game changer, even in how I do my podcasts, especially on how I communicate on LinkedIn. That was like a big unlock for me. When it comes to, and you touched on it earlier just now, in the targeting whales example, people want to see the who. And nowadays, storytelling, authenticity is like, if you're on LinkedIn, you know just as well as I do, that's all you're seeing right now, on personal brand and like all that stuff. Now, I think I've only recently started to understand the importance or the significance of your origin story. And when I watched the Worldbuilding Model, it kind of gave me your world-building story with strategies and, techniques. So why do you think so many of us, even if you're an employee or whatever, I think everyone, that should kind of be, in my perspective, what I've learned is, you come to my LinkedIn, watch this, you'll know who Khalid is, and then we can talk about everything else.
Mm-hmm. So the question is, why isn't everyone
why aren't enough people doing that?
So I've made a post about this in the past, which is nobody cares about the PCC, ACC, ICF, PhD, whatever, and you see me not do it as well in your headline, and that's what people like. They show their certificates, awards, and so on.
Yeah.
But if we think, and if you want to do good in this world, let's say, people online are in pain. And they're not searching PhD, ICF, PCC, and so on. They're searching for someone who understands them at a human level. Like, let's say there are 2 PhDs doing the exact same thing, exact same years, exact same university, and so on. They'll choose one over the other, even if the price are the same, because that person understands. Like, they feel that chemistry.
Yeah.
And that person may have said all the right words in the world, and they still wouldn't care less about that person. So there's something I'm pushing, which is psychographics over demographics. Everyone talks about, and this is how ads work generally, choose a person, choose the age, choose a gender, choose whatever it is, run the ad, and go to people. But how I'm telling people to look at it is look at the emotions you want to tap into and talk to that person, because that differentiates you completely than other people. And you're not going to be fighting on the same demographics other people are. And the reason they don't do it, and I think because they don't know. If they knew, they would.
Yeah.
But they just don't know. So this is an awareness thing.
Yeah. Well, fair. Yeah. It might genuinely, might be that point. And again, touching on everything we've talked about, it's that the person, you don't buy from the person who has all the certificates. You'll buy more likely from the person who understands you. Like, oh, he gets me. Khalid gets me. Adham understands what I'm going through. That's exactly how I feel.
And if you notice, just let me add this.
Please.
If you notice on my LinkedIn, I had before PhD, blah blah, under in the buy experience and so on. I removed it all.
You have one thing.
Yes.
What also surprised me about your. Because first of all, when I saw that and then I did my research, I'm like, but where's, the rest of it? I was like, what's going on? So now I didn't know it was a conscious decision that you decided to make. But also what I love is your landing page is, I was just looking at your landing page and I was reflecting on mine. Like mine is my story and, this is what I have. Literally, guys, his is 3 lines. You're interested? Let me know. What was it? I built satellites in space and now I'm trying to build robots on Earth.
Yes.
Full stop. And khalas, come. You want to come along for the ride?
Exactly.
What I really appreciate about the way your content and the way you do things, Adham, is you make it very simple. And you've said, over the time that business is easy. That's what you've said.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked today about, I think we can confidently say that the biggest problem in the business is you, the person, when it comes to that. So you said when you break down a business, it's what you can provide, what you can sell, how do you sell, can you convince people, and how do you deliver that product? Mm-hmm. And you've also said that the number one skill is how to get customers, because you can always then, I love the restart, game example. Yeah. It's just like restart, another life and let's go. Yeah. So how do I think this is if that is the most important skill to learn, is how do I get customers? What advice would you have to someone like that?
Know your customer, who he is or who that person is, and talk to their heart instead of their head. Head is logic, heart is emotion. Talk to their heart, because that's what moves them. And I know in sales also, if you've been in sales, they say emotions buy and logic and so on. But what that really means is that, and I am another term I use a lot of terms. Another thing I say as well is that people just want a digital hug. They just want a hug.
That's so great.
Yeah, they just want a hug. So just give them a hug with your content and so on. It's fine. We're going to get there. I understand this is happening. I understand and so on. And everything will take care of itself. Like me as a person, I don't like being like at the very beginning when I started, I don't want to look salesy. Everyone says you need to be a salesman if you want to be a founder. Founder is a salesperson and so on. Like I've seen that, but I said I don't want to sell. Like I don't want that commission breath, as they say.
Yeah, commission breath.
So
it's the first time I've heard that. That's awesome.
Yes, it's famous. So and also there's another phrase I don't know. Also, if you're aware of, is ABC, always be closing.
Yeah, familiar with that.
Also that I'm kind of going against all of that.
Yeah,
but it's more of understand the other side. Me at the very beginning, I thought this is the only way, like selling, cold calling, and all that. That was the only way. Until I drew a line and said, no, I'm going to do it my way and I'm going to make it work. And this is and the mindset I would love everyone to have is set what you want and make it work, even if nobody made it work in the past. Like, don't say that, no, everyone has a website, I need to have a website too.
Yeah.
Me personally, I don't care less about my website. It gets me the emails and that's all I want.
Yeah.
So that's my website. Even I had calls before dropping sales calls. I had a Calendly there. I removed that as well. Just DM me if there's anything and so on. And I'm just playing on pure data, which is the 7-11-4.
Yeah.
And the content and speaking to emotions. All this combined to the whales that I'm talking to. If you're talking to, let's say, planktons.
Yeah.
just joke. Okay. So if you're talking to, let's say, the Udemy minds. It's funny. So if you're talking to Udemy minds, then like you should hide the stuff away, which I'm not with that kind.
Yeah.
They need scarcity, they need urgency, they need time countdown, these time countdowns that are not right and so on, like these all fake kind of scarcity things. I don't do that. It's more of, this is it. Do you want it or not?
Yeah.
And that's the approach I suggest everyone also to take, because it's more of a pull and it keeps you calm as a human.
Yeah.
Like you're not holding tight, I need this sale, I need this sale.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting hearing your process behind it. First of all, I love the mindset that you talked about, is when you set that decision that I'm not doing cold calls, I'm not doing this shit. Now, this is what I want to do. So I don't really have a choice. I kind of have to figure out how this works, even if it hasn't been done before. That is such a good point too, because that will always come into your mind, but like people have always said, this is not possible, or I can't do it this way, or you shouldn't do it that way. Now, I think because historically what we've talked about, like the numbers game, the volume, call, send, then you get like 100, then you get like 10, and then you get like 2 clients. That's typically been sales for, 30, 40 years. But now things have changed. I'm noticing even with the way you're doing it, it's shifting to this kind of new format of, I'm going to give you a lot of value, and you will, I'm going to make you'll come to me just because I'm delivering it in the right way. I think though, I think that shift could have only happened because of technology. Because back in the day, to sell in volume, it would have to be that your phone was like your link to that. So I think now though, with Instagram and TikTok, and coming onto the 7-Eleven for it, now I have so many touch points that I can easily push out content to bring people towards me. Do you think that's what's like driving that big shift these days?
Technology definitely is a factor, but you understand it, yes. I understand it, yes. But many people still treat business as what you just mentioned, which is dinosaur ages. They go after the client. They like all these tactics that they used to do. Technology definitely changed, and times also have changed in terms of how people trust you. Like at the end, like everything I do and why I go with that mindset of I'm going to make it work, whatever I do, is I look at the pure fundamentals of why did it work in the past. So why did it work in the past? Because that person got to hear a voice. And if you're not on my email list, but what I did was I actually went back to the fundamentals. I started putting voice notes in my emails.
Okay.
Like me speaking.
Okay.
And because I thought nobody gave me their WhatsApp till now, so I sent personalized voice notes. So let me send it on email. And it did really well. So this is just something I'm testing out. But if you go back to the fundamentals, people heard a voice, human to human, okay? Then you sensed an energy from that voice. Where is he rude? Is he good? Like as soon as someone calls you, your senses all just are heightened and say, who's this person? And then when you saw the person, the appearance mattered and so on. So online, your content, the way you're editing, your content, the setup, everything is appearance. Trust is by you speaking and understanding them. Like it's a different way of doing things, but the fundamentals always remain the same. Yeah. So if you master the fundamentals for the past or today, you just need small shifts to this time and it will work. Like in the future, I'm confident the fundamentals will not change. Like humans are humans. Yeah. It's just something new will come. A VR maybe, looking at that other person's eye.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's how you have like the meetings or whatever. Thing, yeah. But I think that's a great point, Adham, on, taking it. It's so easy to get distracted by everything that's going on with new tech, with new approaches, with new whatever, and what I've taken from a big thing I've taken from our conversation today is like block out the noise and just bring it back to, like you said, the fundamentals. Why does this happen? It's 1 + 2 = 3, not 1 + 2 = 10. Like it's that simple, it's there for a reason, and that's why it's always been there, and it seems like it will always be there. Just to round off, Adham, I have 3 more questions for you. So one thing that I really found interesting, and this kind of summarizes the funnel conversation, part of the conversation, because as we've talked about now with your approach, it's pulling everything towards you. One thing you said about the funnel that I didn't consider is you're investing so much time, energy, and resources and you're discounting the time factor, which is that guy's going to take 2 to but it might take 2 months to 2 years to convert. So you're burning cash for something down the line. And what you're, instead of going, I can't remember what the initial one was, but you went from sales to follower to lead to...
No, leads to... from stranger.
Sorry, stranger, yeah.
So
maybe you could walk us through how you tweak the process from, it was stranger lead to client, and now you have added 2 additional steps that I think make it, from my perspective on this thing, it's a much like, oh yeah, I got to come along for the ride. Like, it's just easier, you know?
It's micro commitments. Yes, I'm going to expand on that. But funnels used to work in the past. And all these big names that you look up to, and I learned from as well, they used to be Facebook ads experts because it was cheap. Like, let's do an ad, it's cheap. It doesn't matter if we burn money here, we're going to make something back. The ROI was good. But today, ads are getting more expensive. People are getting annoyed, zapped by these ads. Attention coaches, consultants, attention, and so on. And they're just tired. People are just tired. And the thing with funnels is that if someone does not convert on the same day, you lose money.
True.
Like, that's how short a time span it has. So what if, that's how I thought about it, what if we could get someone in and keep them with us forever? Like, just around the ecosystem. Like, when I sell on email, that person sees my content, that person sees me somewhere else on something. Like, they see me everywhere.
Yeah.
Even if they forgot about me, they remember me. Yeah. So that's what I try to build with Worlds as well. So instead
of zigzag, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So instead of taking a complete stranger to telling them, give me your email, then come on the call, then zapping them with a bunch of emails just to make sure they come on the call, and then going on that call as well and trying to sell them on you and your method and your offer all at the same time is too much. And they keep it also 4 to 7 days. Like, the call is 4 to 7 days from the person that books, just so that person doesn't forget. That's too much high friction, high pressure to get the sale. And that person may be a bad fit. That person may have been used a sales tactic on to get to the sale, which is a nightmare client, which there's nothing good about the process other than being transactional.
Yeah.
And where's the human element in all this? It's not there. For me, what I said is that let's take complete strangers to become followers, followers to become leads, leads to become customers, customers to become clients, clients to become case studies, and these case studies that you can use, you can take back to strangers. Do you want to become followers?
Yeah.
And I'm not telling a person come and buy from me today. I'm not telling a person commit time and resource to me with me today.
Yeah.
It's more of you're telling a person, let's take micro steps and see if we're a good fit for each other and not. And during the full process, it's a different market sophistication level.
Yes.
Not in terms of the whales and the Udemy minds, but more of how aware are they of you, your offer, your method, and so on. So complete strangers get hooked because you're doing something different. You're doing this podcast standing or on the wall like Spider-Man or whatever it is. So they're hooked. Okay, amazing. Let me follow this person. Then you say, because I do that, I've got this much more views, I've got this much more clients, and so on. Amazing. I understand the method because this method is better than the guys you see on YouTube who are sitting on chairs.
Yeah.
Then you build that gap. That's through content and you speaking. Then at some point, you hit a psychological post or whatever you want to do, like a content or a live show or whatever. And then they're going to reach out to you. They're going to feel heard and seen. They're going to reach out to you. This is where you show them the offer. Then they're going to say, okay, for example, in my offer, at the very beginning, I say, who this is not for. Like I have a filter like at the very beginning.
Very nice.
If for me not to waste my time or your time, just read this. If it's not for you, don't read the rest. Like, it's fine. You can go binge watch my content or whatever you can do. I'm going to post out everything anyways. So that's the first part of the offer. You try to eliminate. And then, for example, another internal filter I kept it a bit not short, like a one-pager proposal, but a bit lengthy in terms of words, just to filter out those who don't want to read. Like, you try to find the no in every step till the end point. And once that client comes in, like every client I have right now, I love working with them because they're perfect fits. Like, it's insane. Like, it's so fun that I can't wait to sit with them and talk to them.
Yeah.
So this small tweaks and building with your constraints is what gets you the business you want, the life you want, and the lifestyle you want, and so on.
Man, that was fucking gold advice, man. That, like, I love how you broke it down into each part, into much smaller things. The commitment aspect was a part that I don't think I've considered enough of, when I reach out to someone. Also, like, what energy am I coming with? Am I, take it or leave it energy, or is it like, hey, please, 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 So also, I think the micro commitment makes it just a lot easier for me to come, either whether I convert or not, it makes it easier for me to connect with you as a person and see you as a person of, authority and someone who knows what they're doing. And then I love what you said, creating an ecosystem. Like, once you're in, whether it's a little thing here, whether it's a post there, if I'm talking to you there. And the filtering, I love that you filter also in your offer, not just in everything else that you do. Because, like, as I've had this experience, you probably had this experience when you first start a business. You just want to work with everyone and anything, but you learn after time, like, this headache, I'll give you a refund to not have, to not deal with this headache that you brought to my life. Adham, I just wanted so I have two more questions for you. These are questions I ask all my guests.
Sure. Tell me.
So, looking back either personally or professionally, I want to ask you the question, what are you most proud of for yourself? What would you say?
Proud? Define proud. Like, what does proud mean to you? Like,
what?
Happy about, or
something that when you look back, like, it fills you with pride that you were able to either accomplish this thing in the business world or change yourself as a person. It really depends.
What's sticking in my head right now, like, I didn't think much to it, but it came out to my head, is the life and I have for my family right now, my kids, my wife, my parents, is that ecosystem as well, that world I've built for them. That's something that's popping in my head. It's not work.
Yeah, it doesn't have to. That's why when I ask the question, I'm like, is it personal or professional? Everyone comes up with a different answer. And what I've learned is the first thing that comes to your head, which is the answer you gave, that's what it is. So that's obviously, inshallah, when I have kids one day, and I can provide for them, and create the ecosystem, that I have the freedom to do what I do and, take care of everyone. Of course, that's what I would love to do as well. So alf mabruk on that, man. And for my last question, Adham, what is the message you'd like everyone to take home with them today?
Build the life that you want and stop listening to the noise around you. That's the one message I wish someone told me. Like, even if I don't know if you know it or not, but there are noise around you right now, and you're influenced by a lot of things, either at work, your job, whatever it is. The lifestyle you want at the other side of the island is possible, and it's very easy. It's very easy. Like, me looking back, it's super easy to get there. Like, and if you're at a job right now, which most will be, look at that salary number, set it as a benchmark of you replacing it as soon as possible with something you love, not spending that much time on, and that's super easy to do. And then from there, everything becomes joy to you and fun. And let go. Yeah. Like, let go. Don't be stressed. Don't go into a scarcity mindset into everything.
Yeah.
This is a message I'm telling everyone right now. And 3 books I'd recommend.
Please, hell yeah.
Psycho-Cybernetics.
Okay.
Then these 2 other books, read them with an open mind. They all go together, by the way. They don't work alone. But Dollars Flow to Me Easily by Richard Dotts. And 3 Magic Words. Read these 2 by open mind. Psycho-Cybernetics is the science. The Money Flows to Me is you letting go. And the last one, which is 3 Magic Words, which is your answer to doing what you want. Fix that human, and then everything becomes possible.
Man, what a perfect way to end, the podcast and the recording. Thank you I've personally learned so much from you today, man. Thank you for the feedback, the advice. I think the work you're doing is amazing. I think you deliver your message so clearly. You give so much value to people. which doesn't surprise me why, you know, you've been able to achieve what you have achieved throughout your career, and especially now with Seyola. So you said your first salary was 2 shawarmas, and now you built $1 million consultancy. So that's quite a journey. I think a more appropriate name for you would be Adham Musk, but you know, I'll leave that up to you. But yeah, man, I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. If people want to work with you, get in touch, what's the best place for us to find you?
LinkedIn. I'm most active on LinkedIn and Instagram.
Yeah.
More than happy, and pleasure, you know, for your time as well. I mean, it's amazing what you're doing, and hope it helps.
Hope it helps. Habibi. Thank you so much again, my man. I really appreciate it, guys. To everyone listening, if you please like, share, follow, and subscribe to the podcast at all channels on Hope It Helps Pod. And as always, guys, hope it helps. Peace.
Thank you. Amazing, man.
And that's another episode in the bag, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. The goal of this podcast is to provide, as I like to call it, education on demand. We cover a wide range of topics, and the goal is to provide you with the knowledge, the tools, and the insights to improve your lives both personally and professionally. And if you're enjoying the show and you're enjoying the content, if you could please do me the small favor of hitting that subscribe button, would really help me build the show and build the channel, and that's all I ask. Stay tuned for more inspiring conversations, bigger guests, and as always, guys, hope it helps.